per month to drop off flyers and talk to residents. If you see her, let her know that you want to go. Make sure she gets your information. Okay? Is that
what is the purpose of going over to San Francisco and then looking at ours and going to theirs?
The purpose of going to San Francisco or any other development is to take a look at what happened in terms of revitalization. What are the possibilities in terms of housing models that might be considered for here at Golden Gate Village? One of the reasons we decided to go to Golden Gate Village first is so that folks can have an appreciation for what Golden Gate Village is today. So that people will have, for those who are not familiar with Golden Gate Village as a housing development, as your homes, so that they can become familiar with that. And also to show you what the possibilities may be. If in fact this body decides or makes recommendations that speak to some other type of housing model, other than what's existed today.
Why can't we have what we already have?
I'm going to have to ask you to defer those questions, like those types of questions, until we get to the question and answer period this evening, because we do have a jam-packed agenda. For this evening, we have one major presentation, and that is the EMG group. Is it EMG group?
EMG Corp.
EMG Corp, who is going to walk us through the most recent physical needs assessment for Golden Gate Village. It was actually done for the entire Marin Housing Authority. What you're going to hear tonight focuses specifically on Golden Gate Village. Some of the things that I would like you to keep in mind as we walk through this process. And I lost my talking point. Oh, thank you. Some things I'd like you to keep in mind as we walk through this process. One is that, as you have heard at every meeting prior to this one, the goal with this revitalization effort, which is a HUD mandate that cannot be changed, is that we're talking about one-to-one replacement. So anything that happens, whether it stays as in its existing state or make changes based upon recommendations, it's a one-to-one replacement model. That is a HUD mandate. We are attempting, as other housing authorities across the country have done, to have a non-displacement policy so that any current residents are able to remain in their homes during development. That's why we call it phased development, so that it occurs in phases and folks are able to stay. And current residents are able to come back to those places that have been revitalized and redeveloped.
Do we have any models?
We will be talking about models, yes. We want you to keep in mind,
Why weren't we given the real report?
because I didn't even have the real report in my hand until yesterday morning, Royce.
Yeah,
And you can speak to Lewis and or Ilya about when you can get a copy. I have asked them to make copies available for everyone who wants a copy of the full P&A will be able to get a copy of the full P&A.
Shouldn't everyone have one?
Right. Anyone who wants one can have one. Pardon? Ilya is this gentleman right here from the Marin Housing Authority.
Shouldn't you postpone the meeting until everybody has a copy of it?
No, not necessarily, because we're going over the high points of that report right now, and anyone who wants a full copy can have one to go through it page by page in detail.
Okay, and how soon?
You can give me your name before you leave here tonight, and I will make sure that you get a copy as soon as the MHA has copies available, which should be sometime later this week. Tomorrow.
Okay, and what does EMG stand for?
EMG.
It stands for something.
It's just initial.
For,
Yes.
I don't know. It is just initial.
Excuse me, can we hear the question? One-to-one replacement. Yes.
I don't believe that.
One-to-one replacement means that for every unit that is revitalized, another unit must be put in its place. So if you have 300 units today, whatever happens down the road, you have to have 300 units moving forward with the same people.
No.
The idea is to have the same people. That's where we talk about non-displacement. And I'm going to ask you all, I understand that you are very passionate about this issue. We have a lot to get through. Excuse me?
You would be that way about where you live.
You're absolutely right, and I agree. You have passion behind this issue. I would like us though to give our presenters who have come to share information with you that will help to inform the next steps in this process. I would love it if you would let them get through their presentation so that we can entertain your questions, because I know that you are passionate and that you really want some answers. Okay? Yes.
About 20 minutes, but we have answers. Saturday, I waited.
I did address that. Yes.
I missed
And so what I said was that if you came on Saturday and there was no bus there, that means that I didn't have your name on a list. We asked that residents who wanted to attend RSVP either via phone or email. And if we didn't have your name, I was not able to reach out to you and tell you that the tour had been canceled. So we apologize for that. The tour is going to be rescheduled for late May or early June. Same process will be in place. Phone call or email to RSVP, or if you see one of our outreach workers out passing out tour flyers, let them know that you want to attend, and we will make sure that we have your information. Now that I know that you're interested, I'll make sure to reach out to you. Oh, thank you. So, some things that I would like you all to keep in mind as we move forward with our presentation. Some overarching questions. One, what are the costs at each facility? And that means each facility that is a Marin Housing Authority owned property. Two, if we were to drill down, what are the critical needs in terms of life and safety, emergency repairs, maintenance, and upgrades? Those are the four broad categories of things that might occur in terms of what exists on the properties today. Three is, what are the priorities of that list of exhaustive needs? What are the priorities? What needs to be done right now? What can wait 2-3 years? What can wait 5 or 6 years, 7 to 10 years, 15 to 20 years? What can be deferred? And what other sources of funding exist to be able to support those types of efforts? And because you're going to go over some of these other points in your presentation, I'll just turn it over to you. This is Mark from EMG. Oh, one final thing. So we are going to ask that you hold questions until we get to the question and answer period so that Mark and his team can get through the presentation. If you have a burning question, I have Post-it notes. Please write down your burning question. I'm going to actually give you Post-it notes because the idea is that we will eventually post them all up on the board, so we will have them.
And for anybody who has questions, I'll be moving around the room.
So, yeah,
you Post-its. And for the working group members, we have Post-its at every other table. And we also have pins as well.
I was just going to say the most urgent could go on pink, hot pink. Lighten the mood a little bit.
I'll remember that for you, Laura. So, any other questions before Mark begins? Yes? No? Thank you. Mark.
Thanks, Lisa. My name is Mark Surdum. I'm from EMG. It's just EMG. It could be the initials of the guy that started this company in 1986. And it was started as a environmental company, phase 1, hazardous materials. Shortly thereafter, we started doing physical needs assessments for various owners and clientele. In 1998, we started doing capital planning, physical or capital needs assessments of properties for portfolio owners, for municipalities, for state governments, and for the federal government. And we've grown ever since. We have approximately 500 employees. We have engineers, architects, structural and civil, mechanical, electrical engineers. We go out and assess properties. And we responded to an RFP from the Marin County Housing Authority, and we gave a proposal, which they thankfully accepted. We did assessments for their portfolio.
Can hear you.
I'm sorry. We did a green physical needs assessment. A green physical needs assessment is required by HUD for every public housing authority which has greater than 250 units. They're required every 5 years. It consists of a P&A, property assessment, which is a comprehensive look at the physical needs of a facility or property over an extended period of time, generally 20 years, and a systemic review of its energy use and requirements in order to identify potential energy savings. It combines the physical needs assessments with the energy audit, which were previously done by separate entities. Okay, so basically we look at the properties and assess their components. And the results we give to the owners, and they use it as a strategic planning tool. It's not a budget, although costs are involved. It's a long-term planning tool so that the property owners have a means of assessing what they need to plan for in the coming years in terms of repairs and replacements to their buildings. And it also can serve as a report for tax credit funding, for any type of funding that they go for. Generally, banks or funders require an assessment of the property. And an energy audit takes a look at the various components to see if their upgrade will result in an energy savings. And it's analyzed for the payback period. If, let's say, you're replacing windows, single pane with dual pane, you won't have to heat or cool the building as much because energy doesn't leave the building through the windows as it does through single pane. And that cost is weighed against the potential savings based on your local energy. That has to do with putting timers on bath fans. Sometimes the timers, you turn on a bath fan and forget about it. This is electricity. They're going towards moisture-sensitive timers so that when all the moisture is gone from the bathroom, it turns off. It doesn't waste energy. Lighting. Lighting is a big factor. We've gone from incandescent to fluorescent. Now the big thing is LEDs because it uses a very small percentage of the energy and saves money over time. Money can be used in your pocket if you pay the bills, or in the housing authority's pocket over the to fund additional repairs and replacements. Go ahead. Okay, so the benefits of the P&A and why HUD requires it. It wants the public housing authorities to take a look at their budgets. It wants them to plan. That's why it's a requirement that HUD makes of the public housing authorities. I won't go read all the details in the handout. Go ahead.
Couldn't a person, excuse me, actually go online, whether they have a computer or a smartphone, and look at the facility? Why the field trips or whatever you call it? What do you call it? Going over there to
that probably
San
is
Francisco to look at public
probably
housing.
is an answer.
Let me answer that.
for
So I can write the question down. So we want to hold questions for this presentation till the end. Definitely write them down. We'll cover them. But the issue around the site visit, can we address that after? So the short answer is yes, you can look at it online. But to be there physically and actually talk to the people who do the work is the goal. But I really don't want to interrupt this process, but I do want to get to your question. So that's the short answer for now, and we will definitely circle back.
Tenants, since they're not.
All right, let's move forward. Thank you.
Okay, so when we approach a green physical needs assessment, our assessor goes on site, looks at the site improvements from access, parking, paving, drainage, walks, curbs, utilities, the landscape and irrigation, fences, signage, disabled access. Then we go to the building improvements. What is the building made of? What are its foundations? What are its cladding? What are its roofing systems? Then we look at the building mechanical situation. Are there common area boilers that feed the whole system, or is it water heaters that feed individual units. What is the electrical system coming in? Is it adequate to serve the tenant's needs and the needs of the facility? We look at fire protection and life safety system. Then we go into the tenant space in terms of the finishes. What flooring does it have and what condition is it in? What is the condition of the walls? What is the conditions of the ceiling, the lighting, the plumbing fixtures, the cabinetry, and the HVAC and electrical systems. Sometimes we look at other issues if the owner or entity provides furniture and fixtures for the tenants. We basically make a judgment call, whether it's in good, fair, or poor condition, and we have something called, for every component, there is an anticipated useful life. Things are only built made to last so long. A stove or refrigerator lasts probably in the neighborhood of 15 years. And maybe less, maybe more. Lighting systems, lighting fixtures, or plumbing fixtures only have a given life. Flooring has a given life. Paint has a given life. Roofing system has a given life. So when our assessor goes out, he establishes the effective age of that. By that I mean, say you have a cabinet that was built 20 years ago. Now the effective age, or the anticipated useful life of a cabinet is 20 years. But if it's been maintained nicely, then it could look like it's 10 years old. And so he establishes an effective age for that 20-year cabinet of 10 years, which means that given the anticipated useful life, it will need to be replaced 10 years in the future. And that's what he places in the report. So he places a effective age on every component to get an idea of when the component will need to be repaired or replaced. And we establish priorities. When we assess over a 20-year period, the first year are the immediate repairs. They correct life safety or code hazards. They're repairing an item that if it's not repaired, it leads to the degradation of other elements of the building or structure. We do things related costs to repair biological growth conditions. Any down units that are not usable, there's a cost to replace them, and further study investigation. We assess a priority. The next priority is items that will be addressed over the course of the next year that return the system to normal operation. Go ahead. Priority 3 are items that need to be assessed in 2 to 3 years, maybe 4. To stop, I guess, to fix in order to stop their degradation and deterioration. Items 4 next to 3 to 5 years, not as important. And then priority 5 is the items that you replace over 6 to 20 years. So, go ahead. And as I said before, we look at energy costs. We get utility bills from the housing authorities and tenants and analyze them for cost. And then we evaluate various components that lead to energy efficiency. And those items that have a payback period of under 12 years we'll recommend. Go ahead. Okay, so after all is said and done, we go out to the site and we write a report. We have a text report which contains tables. The tables say, based on our evaluation and that snapshot, that 1 or 2 days we visit the site and get an idea of the ages of the components and talk to the maintenance people. Talk to even tenants as we go through. What problems are they having? how are the conditions as they experience them. We write the report. And the result for Golden Gate Village. All right. So we've identified costs. These are costs over a 15-year need period. You've got a very large facility, 300 units. It's composed of, as you know, 8 multi-spaces and high-rise and a number of a large number of low-rise buildings. We've identified a number of components for energy efficiencies for the ECMs, energy conservation measures. But the buildings are over 50 years old, and they are in need of help if they keep on. If you expect them to provide safe housing. You know, things are beginning to go wrong. Starting from the site, you've got a lot of trees and a lot of foliage, but that tends to upset sewer lines, water lines feeding the site. If those aren't repaired, you have breaks, you have health issues, you have stoppages that affect the livability of the unit. Those need to be repaired. There's a cost associated with that. You have, in heavy rains, I understand that there is a landslide issue in portions of the site. There's concrete V-gutters that run through the site that channel water, which collect a lot of debris that inhibits the flow. That needs to be addressed.
May I ask you a question just about how we're reading this?
Okay, so how we're reading this, this is the Marina City high-rise, Marina City low-rise. These are the years, this is the immediate repair costs to get, to resolve the deferred maintenance issues and a little bit of ECM will get that along, further along.
So in other words, it's 16 million for 2015, and then 2016, if you spend that 16 million, then the projected cost would be 480,000.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And that goes along. You know, as you, this is just, you know, maybe this year you replace the roof. Maybe this year you replace some appliances. Maybe this year you actually do very little because the ages didn't say that you had to replace them in that year. But that's how it goes along. So,
She asked a question, may I?
can you go ahead? Okay, so we looked at, the Housing Authority has had us look at a 55-year period. And over the course of time, you constantly need to be funding repairs and replacement. So at the end of 55 years, we've got a total escalated estimate, which means that the escalated means that we take the dollar value now, add the cost of living year by year, and in this case 3%. And by the end of 55 years, you'll need to spend $151 million. Now, you can argue about the number. You can say it's, oh, well, that's too high. Even 130 million. You need to spend the money to repair the building, to keep it going, to you know, maintain safe, decent housing. It's like a car. You don't, if it needs oil and you don't put oil, you defer it. Pretty soon the engine seizes up and it doesn't work. So this goes to long-term planning. The Housing Authority takes this report and sees where their needs are in succeeding years and what they have to do to meet the needs. Go ahead. Go ahead. All right, so we mentioned 7-something million in the Marina high rise. This is a detail of what what the components that we recommend to be fixed consist of. There are a certain number of ECMs, energy conservation measures. For example, we replaced the 400-watt high-pressure sodium fixture. There's something on the next slide, but there's the high-cost items are water supply line, let's see, sanitary sewer collection pipe, concrete paving, asphalt, concrete curbs and gutters to eliminate trip hazards, trench drains and covers to fix your drainage system. Go ahead. Basically, it goes through deferred maintenance and gets up with everything. The way we look at it is we tell the housing authority what it would cost to get it kind of ship-shape, to go on, you know, and be a viable product to live in. And that is what we assess the value of. And the same thing goes for the low-rise apartment. Right? They need the same thing. The sanitary sewer is, you know, a bigger problem in the low-rise. The streets need to be repaired, and sealed. Go ahead. Various elements of kitchen cabinets need to be replaced, paint, flooring.
Where does it say flooring? Oh, vinyl plank flooring?
Yeah.
That's a square vinyl flooring.
Go ahead. Okay, so once we complete the report, go ahead. There's the Public Housing Authority goes through an exercise of capital planning. They go ahead. All right. First of all, they need to compare the costs of Golden Gate Village with the costs on the rest of the portfolio. The total cost that we assessed was something over $17 million in first-year costs. Only $1 million of it is for the rest of the portfolio. And it's reasonable because Golden Gate Village is the oldest facility. It needs the most work. The other ones are younger facilities, don't need the excessive repairs that Golden Gate Village does. And they contrast it with, that's the starting point, with the available funding. We put a plug number in of $1,000 a unit that is available to HUD. It may be more, it may be less, but that's the number that HUD gives to the Housing Authority for capital improvements or capital replacements. Now, HUD did a study in 2010 of all their public housing authorities. The unmet capital needs was at that time $26 billion for all of the housing authorities. And it's only gone up since that time because HUD has diminished the amount of money that it gives the housing authorities. So that's what they have to work with. And this is the number that they have to work with, maybe plus or minus a couple $100,000. But that's all that they have to work with to repair their buildings. And so they need to plan for the future. I'm sorry.
So you're giving us the cost for a facility. Is there a unit cost associated with that? Because Golden Gate Village is the oldest, but you put 300 units. I don't know how big the other units are. But is there a cost associated with what is on average the unit cost is?
We can derive that cost. The other facilities contain 200 units combined.
Combined?
Combined. To give you an idea, just all of the 5 other facilities.
So as a percentile, I'm just trying to do the math. you know, how much more, because I understand what you're trying to say. What I'm trying to say is, but it's not apples to apples. It's not clear to me that Golden Gate Village, and it's Marin City actually, not Marina City, but it's not clear to me that Golden Gate Village is costing how much more per unit. You know what I mean? And that would be helpful to know.
Right. We can derive what those costs are.
But do you have, because it's just hard for me to look at this right now and say, well, of course, Casanova, or whatever that is, it's so much less, but it's also much smaller, and it's known.
Right.
So when you're doing capital planning, we're not talking specifically, and for the context of this conversation, it's about the high-rise and low-rise in Marin City, and clearly it's significant, right? It's $15–16 million just for Marin City. But again, as a unit price, I think it would be helpful for us to know.
Go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that these were built in the 40s, were they not?
I believe the early
60s? Okay, but they've lasted 60 years till now, correct?
Yeah.
And yes, everything kind of needs to be fixed up and replaced. But I was living in Hamilton, and they are very newer buildings, which I think are kind of the same builder that built these condos over here. And they were starting to kind of fall apart already. And none of these facilities are very old. So they're already starting to need repairs, right? But this one's already been around for, you know, 50-something years. So to me, it makes more sense to me to fix up something that's lasted this long than put a bunch of money into young places that aren't going to last as long as this place has.
All right. Yes.
That gets us to the planning that the housing authority is active in and has ongoing. They have to look at the cost of each facility. They have to weigh the age and the needs, and they have to drill down. What are the most important things we need to fix? Everybody will agree that life safety items is of paramount importance, regardless of what the site is or regardless of what the age of the building is. They have to meet that need. The other is life or emergency repair, maintenance, upgrades. They have to prioritize over the portfolio. They have a limited budget. And they have to decide what needs to be done now and what can be deferred. We place the cost in year 1, year 2, year 3. With proper maintenance, it could go, you could place them farther along. You could defer it. But you have to recognize that the buildings that we see today have had substantial deferred maintenance in the past. And we're looking at problems that have arisen or are today that were created because of deferred maintenance. This is just, we just come up with numbers. And the numbers are based on national averages adjusted per the zip code on cost. But they are costs, they're real costs. And you, in maintaining the buildings, they need to spend the money. And so this just gives them an idea of what they have to spend on a yearly basis, approximately, so that they can plan.
Yeah, I have a comment on that. Number one, thank God that Aaron Green did really build those units to last 300 years. Otherwise, it would be just like you're saying. But with that capital planning, I mean, the Housing Authority deliberately has not given Marin City, Golden Gate Village, the capital funding that we are entitled to. That's number one. But if you step out of not only the capital, and I've really been thinking after listening to Lewis talk about what HUD gives them, and it's $33 million. 28 million, am I right, goes to 29, but you were saying 28, goes to Section 8. So that leaves anywhere between $4 or $5 million left. So if you split it 60-40, it would be, and as well as with the capital, Marin City has like $3.4 million that should be going to our property. However, because of the the housing authority is so top heavy because they're built, you know, government, the bureaucracy, it causes us not to get, I mean, there's no way that that property should be looking the way that it looks for $3.4 million a year. So, and like I said before, housing authority perhaps has outgrown their usefulness. Because anytime you got 4 or 5 people from upper management, and that's $1 million off the top, and then now you ready to think you're gonna get rid of us and bring in others. Yes, it's guaranteed 300 units, but when I ask the question, how many more units are you going to build? And they said they don't know that number, but it's definitely over 300 more units, which means we won't be displaced. Oh, but we will. But where the community itself, we won't know the community as we know it, as our community will be another minority within our community. So we need to really start thinking too of maybe other housing management corporations that we can work towards to come from up underneath the housing authorities. Then maybe we could have maybe $1 million plus a year to do some of the maintenance work that needs to be done and give it, period. Because this is Chicago.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's right. Yes. I want to bring us back to our meeting in, I believe it was February or March. Miguel from HUD came, and he gave us a rundown of exactly what the Marin Housing Authority receives from HUD as a part of its capital budget.
Right.
And that number was about $800,000.
But it's a 60-40 as it relates to.
All I can do is tell you what the numbers that I have seen and then the budgets that I have seen.
Going to
so what that means is,
no, it means that AMP 2 is getting most of the money, and it's perpetrated. Yeah, that's what it is.
So you see here, this line tells you every year, HUD, Housing Authority of Marin, gets about $500,000 to put towards its capital improvements for all of its development, not just Golden Gate Village. And if that's a misnomer, then you should speak. Then we need to go back and look at the budget.
What?
Okay? And we need to look at. We need to revisit the information that was provided to us by HUD. Okay.
Why is it that it was $800,000 capital money? Now you're saying it's $500,000.
It's $800,000.
I'm gonna let. Can we please let him answer?
If you do 60-40,
The average.
So the
average,
the 500,000, the 500,000 is an estimate of what we actually put into capital improvement of the 800. So the other 300 goes towards management improvement. It goes towards operations. It goes towards administration.
Right.
All of the 800 doesn't go into, and let me be clear about that 500,000. That's the number we're basing it on today, assuming that HUD is going to keep giving us the same amount. My math says that as we get down that road, the likelihood of us getting the same amount goes away as we see decreases from the federal government every single year. Another point, and I'll let you get back. This notion of the bureaucracy. We've gone from 63 employees down to 40 employees over the last few years. And if those of you who live in the development, you see less maintenance people. And so we're working with what we have to work with. So this notion of us being top hat is just ludicrous.
Okay, Mark has one more slide.
Yeah, let's let Mark get to him. We can address it.
And then we will open it up for discussion.
Right.
Okay? Thank you very much.
Can I ask Mark a question?
Can I just finish it?
Let's just get through.
We got one more slide.
Okay, so we had this one. I think we had this one before.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, so then they're gonna, in line with what, a question that was asked before, why do we need to see other facilities? Other facilities have the same problem. Other public housing authorities have the same problem. They're typically underfunded for their capital needs. And so they've gone to various models to maintain their stock of housing. And this just goes through some of the ways that the models that have been established. That was about it.
So by taking people to a public housing in San Francisco, is this one that's totally refurbished so that we look at it and say, oh wow, that's the way these that have lasted for 55 years are gonna look once they're refurbished? Is that what the?
No, you're talking about tearing down the building.
So you're taking people over there to see where they'll live while we refurbish these places?
We are taking people on a site visit in order to see models of what has been done in other public housing authority development. It does not mean that we're saying that Golden Gate Village is going to become Hope SF. That is not at all what we're saying.
That's why I said, just so we can
just so you can see this is what one housing authority has done. One housing authority.
As a model, as I said.
Yes.
Okay. And so why tell the tenants how much the cost is? Is it that because the tenants will be charged a percentage to help with the refurbishment of their unit?
No,
not at all.
by no means.
Well, why did we get that whole presentation? That's just to let you know.
This is to let you know what the cost, where we are today.
We all know it's nothing free in America.
What is the state of Golden Gate Village today? If we look at that list of repairs, and remember, there were priorities that Mark gave us in our presentation, right? There were priority 1 areas, priority 2 areas, priority 3 areas, right? Priority 1 areas were things that needed to be addressed with some immediacy. These things need to be seen to, or if you defer them, if you continue to defer that maintenance, within the next 5, 15, 20, 25 years, you're going to increase the problem.
Are the tenants deferring it? Who's deferring?
No, we're not saying that the tenants are deferring by any means. No one is saying anything about the tenants deferring. We are saying that given the amount of capital money that this housing authority has received over the course of the past even 4 years is not enough to meet the need.
Well, can I
So they have had to defer some of this maintenance.
Okay.
Hold on, let me finish.
But didn't I see in the bill when you was looking for other donors? You know, I mean,
No matter what happens, you have got to find outside financing. And I want to, Ms. Ashby has been attempting to make a point for a minute, so please go ahead.
Okay, Mark, do you know about Falling Water? That place? Do you know about Roby House? I used to live down the street from Roby House. I've never seen the people there vacated so that they can fix Roby House, which is much older than where we are. Because Frank Lloyd Wright built that a long time before he did this. Now, they don't want to say that he did this because we're black. He did the Civic Center, and he did this first. Okay? So, you guys don't want us to have Frank Lloyd Wright buildings. You want us out. And that's not fair to bring EMG or whoever you guys are. Who are you? And how much do you get paid to make these presentations?
Is it coming out of our budget? Is it coming out of our 300,000? Or your 300,000?
How much are they?
Where's that 300,000? Why is that versus
This is not
the community?
about relocating. It's just about giving a snapshot to the housing authority to see.
So again, we have said at almost every meeting, the question of displacement comes up, and that's to be expected.
Because it's real. Because it's real.
There are plenty of housing authorities, and even in alternate plans, we have not discussed any real model or plan as yet. That is our next step, right? Well, we have talked about historical, yes, we have talked about
I'm not
historical
even talking about the historical preservation, But it has been talked about throughout our community, where in fact the housing authority is talking about tearing down the 100, building something new there. Then they'll tear down the next level and then build something there. Yes, you did say that.
Yes, you did.
The truth will set you free. Not only that, we have Derek Smith, who is already telling people, you might as well pack up and leave. You might as well, because it's over. We're going to tear it down, even to the audacity and tear down our homes to say what direction them condos is going to be facing the water. So he's in with RDJ and Louis Jordan.
And he's as of right now, there is no plan in place.
And not in place, but there is a plan.
And part of the reason why we are here is to address the issue around what happens to residents. The goal is to have no displacement of residents, no matter what kind of activity occurs, to make this place a better place for residents so that they can, so that you as residents can realize some level of stability and economic life, a better quality of life.
And we have a good quality of life.
I'm not saying that you don't, right? I'm not saying that you don't. I'm saying that you want to maintain that quality of life and make it better.
Yeah, like renovating and renovating.
Can we let this gentleman?
Excuse me? You mean ma'am?
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Anyway, back to my point. I had several questions. So how did you come up with that number of that cost of that amount? Like what was that based off of? Like realistic factors, or what kind of reconstructing were you doing when you came up with those figures? Was that heavy duty work or roofing or electricity, or like what was it? Because and how has that already been done? Has someone already came out in the last 55 years to assess these units? And if they have or if they haven't, where is the money? Because if we haven't been remodeled or our maintenance have been done thoroughly for the last 55 years, where is the money? If we haven't spent that money on maintenance and it's been like backlash, where did the money go? Not only that, how is it that Marin Housing has a $300,000 budget to a $500,000 budget for units of how many people in these units? So, and then they said they had a cutback of their budget, which means that $300,000 is split amongst smaller group of people. Is that correct?
What's your question?
No. The question is that correct? Is that $300,000 split amongst a smaller amount of people now?
The number of people and the number of units, ma'am, have not changed.
No, I'm not talking about the number. I'm talking about your staff, the salary. How is that? Is that your salary? That $300,000 based out of that $800,000? Is that coming out? Is that your salary? Where's that $300,000?
Management and training and.
I mean, it just like any business. And so one of the things that I like to propose is we need to get through this. If we need to have another meeting to specifically sit down and go through the budget, and we can do it here, we can do it over on the ground, because what happens is that people come in and you hear parts of it. We want you to hear the whole thing. We can break down and tell you how much of that $33 million, how every dollar is allocated to everything we do. All of that information is available.
Sir, I've been a part of this community for over like 20 years.
I understand.
You're like the 15th, 10th place I've seen in that housing authority.
Okay.
To where there's no consistency there. To where the information that's coming from there is not very trustworthy amongst the community residents. Do you guys have our back, or do you guys have the profit, the big P like everyone else? Is what I'm trying to figure out. And so you diverting my question or my concerns, putting it off to another day, makes me more concerned about where you guys stand.
Tell me what you want to know.
Where is that what is that $300,000 for? Is that for salary? Yes. Or is that for like assumed budget as far as you guys coming to speak to us? You guys doing the different demonstrations that we have. What is that $300,000?
Well, I think focusing on the $300,000 is just a very small part.
No, that's focusing on our maintenance. Because if you didn't have as much, we would have more.
Okay, so if we added $300,000, that 17 million number might be 9 or 10 million.
Where is that
this is the reality, guys. The amount of deferred maintenance, the amount of costs that we need to fix the buildings. And let me be clear, Mark, please correct me if I'm wrong. It's not just deferred, it's old. The buildings are old. So 17 million to fix it versus X amount a year, we get to fix it, it would take us another 30, 40, 50 years to catch up with the maintenance based on the amount of money we have. The model, the funding model that we have does not work.
Who assessed that 17 million? How did, that's my first question.
That's what he's gone over.
How did you know? He never went over, because she asked the question as far as per unit. He never assessed what that says 17 million was going towards as far as each individual unit or even as far as the property. He never specified that. He gave us a vague description of a budget and then gave us a number. What I'm trying to figure out is, where did you get that number, based on what?
No.
I'm a
Take a look at, you have,
looking my.
Okay, so if you look at the presentation on page 18. Well, these are the specific numbers we looked at to get to that $17 million. It's all line items, all line items.
He's giving the explanation.
You have a water supply line.
He's giving the explanation.
You have a water supply line that's 5,250 feet long. Water supply line. That's the cost of $77 per foot to replace. They have to dig it out. They have to stop it. These aren't numbers to get to the total.
and if you look on the presentation on page 17 is the total for one building, and on page, I believe it's 20, there's the total for the other building.
Who assessed it? Was it your company? Was it your company that did this? Can we have a third party for that represents us?
They are the
We
third
don't feel
party.
like there's a hidden agenda, because you want to have that higher number, so you get that budget, right? Like, is it correct? Because that high number is for, because if you get that high number, then that's more money you guys have to work with as far as the products and the maintenance.
They have nothing to do with it. Right.
You guys don't, that's not your company, you guys don't hire out for
This
this.
is just the message. Right. He'll give the information and you'll never see him again. This is just the message.
Mary, Aura, and then
Ricardo's had his hand up.
Yeah, Ricardo has them.
I defer to him.
I defer to him too.
My name is Ricardo, and I'm your community land trust man. And I'm going to say for the 500th time, if you own the land, we wouldn't be having these discussions. What I want to say is that I want to ask you a question. You say if we had a $17 million deferred maintenance piece, in your portfolio, you know, you work with other organizations that had the same type of problem. Were any of that deferred maintenance problem turned over into local jobs? Were jobs created to help take care of some of the maintenance problems, thereby lowering, you know, the maintenance problems and creating jobs within those complexes? If we had, for example, if we had $17 million of deferred maintenance, we put $10 million into job training, to do architectural restoration, to do cleanup, maintenance, landscaping, and all this stuff, bringing revenues back into the community, bringing revenues back into that land trust, by the way, which is owned and controlled by the residents within that community. That's right. So the ownership piece is taken care of, and the decision-making process about who you want to do this, the developers, the policy makers, are taken care of by the local residents. They have full say-so in their own destiny and in the destiny of the community. Not only that, because we work with the collective impact within the community, they become part of the community whole. So we bring the health and wellness piece, we bring, you know, the religious community who we're trying to train to be first responders in the mental health system. We bring that to play. We bring ours to help. We put it all in help upgrade the cultural, you know, the public housing residents become benefactors of everything that the community has to offer. But the thing is, owning the land is key. Well, I sit around and watch us lose all this land because, you know, these shoddy developers, people who didn't have the best intentions of Marin City in their hand. We lost millions and millions and millions of dollars because of that. And I'm saying, if we want justice, equity, we have to build community from within. And
That's right.
And we got too much talent, entirely too much talent in this community, you know, to just turn it over. So what we have to do is look, one, for me, land ownership and control of the land.
Amen. Right.
Wow.
Mary, actually, excuse me, Mary, and then Aura, and then Dana.
You listen to questions, but you never answer it.
Sorry, Ricardo, did you actually have a question or was there a statement?
No, I asked about the portfolio. Have you done any work around other communities that did something about deferred maintenance by hiring people within that community and training them?
We don't get involved with end results. The public, who the public housing authorities hire, it happens long after we're done.
And there are examples of public housing authorities that have created programs where they hire residents in order to do that kind of work. And those residents become employees of the housing authority. They go on to the maintenance staff. There are training programs that are created for that. Yes, there are examples of that across the country.
But did they change the bottom line of the deferred maintenance?
I cannot tell you off the top of my head whether or not that changed the bottom line. I can tell you that those programs do exist.
Just to remind us briefly, our presentation last month where we had a San Francisco housing resident who started his own business by recycling within the housing development, created a business, created jobs, saved money for the housing authority, put a plan in place where they actually got money for the recycled goods. So there are examples. We actually brought one here. Our goal is to draw a line through these different pieces, and that's the work that we're trying to do. So I apologize if you don't remember that and you weren't here, but we are trying to bring the examples that you're asking for.
I got Mary, I have Aura, I have Dana, I have Scott, and Royce. And I'm sorry, Royce. So start with Mary, please.
My daughter Rachel lived in Hunters Point with her 3 children, my grandkids, and was displaced out of there. Had to move to another housing authority, housing in San Francisco. So now it tickles me that now it's called Hunter's View, because the PR is kind of better now than Hunter's Point, because everybody knows the point is the point. So it makes me wonder what we're eventually going to call Marin City, because Marin City has had sort of the same kind of a rep. So I wonder what they're going to try and call us. And the other thing is the Section 8, there are only 2% vacancy rate available rate in Marin to put an apartment. So even if you get the golden Section 8 voucher, you have to pour it out and go somewhere else. So I think that it just, to me, we want to keep this our community, and we don't want to have to bring in, because right here it said allowing public housing to be rebuilt by private entities. That sentence right there really bothers me, because we don't want to be private. We want to be able to be involved in this.
To be clear, that a part of the trend, and this is a HUD trend, not a housing authority trend, HUD is reducing budgets, which means that housing authorities across the country have had to outsource a number of different functions. That's everything from property management to maintenance, including the development of new units. Examples being in, I can't even think, what's the city? Gentrification. No, not gentrification. I'm talking about Bridge Housing, which is a nonprofit developer that partners with housing authorities in order to create new housing, low-income housing, affordable housing, that is mixed-income housing, that housing authority residents go into, where there are services available that are maintained by Bridge Housing. That's one example. Aura. I answer your question, Mary.
Sort of. But you seem a little defensive to me, which is...
I'm just really tired.
Well, I know, but your tones and your attitude. Well, I'm sick too.
Sorry.
But
I apologize. I apologize.
I think all of us are all trying to be pretty mellow, so but you're just put it up.
I want to put some reference around what we're talking about. I'm a retired builder and architect, and there is low, middle, and high when you're talking about estimates. And now, just in terms of in the past, you weren't involved in this, but they brought in Basis Architecture to do a P&A, and they rent the Falkirk building in San Rafael. That's it's a historic building, but it's a very expensive place to rent. And so that's one thing. Secondly, 50 years is not old. I grew up in New England, and those buildings are hundreds of years old, and they aren't even made out of concrete.
even in Marin County, 50 years is
It's
not
young,
old.
it's young, and I want to say, Aaron Green worked with Frank Lloyd Wright, and they created these buildings to last over 300 years to deal with bombs and earthquakes and everything. So that needs to be made clear, and I do think that, you know, it is really important when you're explaining things to people that people understand there's not just one price, there's not just one cost. There are people, Habitat for Humanity can do amazing things, and then you have people who are at the high end where it costs quite a bit. So you have to keep that into, you know, just when you're throwing these figures out, they could be getting estimates from the highest bidder, and that, you know, when you're looking at figures, you have to be aware of that. You know?
I would agree with you. This is a number, and it's a number that is a starting point. There are ways to save money.
And I think it is important to question what we are doing with that $300,000, which takes a huge chunk out of the brick and mortar funding that we have for our properties.
Dana Scott Royce.
You know, a couple things caught my eye. Okay, I seen on there something about the boilers need replacement. Was it the boilers or the timers or something? Our boilers in our building were just replaced maybe 2-3 years ago. Then also there was something on there about the piping, the drainage piping. I don't know if anybody remembers, but our whole driveway in my building between two of the high rises was tore up. They just did that. We had to go, couldn't park up there for, I don't know, maybe the work lasted 3 weeks or more, and they ripped holes all the way down the driveways, supposedly had to replace all that. So not only that, about 5 years ago, they had Donahue ripped up in sections with tractors going and everything, and supposedly that was drainage pipe that they were replacing. So that was just I've been here 8 years, that was just within the last 3, 4, 5 years. So I'm a little, you know, so you guys are saying that these things need to be, we all got new bathroom fans with timers on it, so why would we replace the timers? You know what I'm saying? It seems like work's been done.
Something that's been fixed don't need to be replaced.
When they did it?
These numbers don't all multiplied by 300. There are certain newer components and certain older components. And the report addresses that as an immediate need, that portion of the totality that needs fixing.
So maybe some sections were replaced and some weren't, and you guys got a report of what was done and what wasn't?
That's, to the best of our knowledge, that's what was given to us.
Can
And then we had Scott, and then we had Royce.
Scott?
Just did the math for
He did the math.
$53,702 per unit for Marin City.
What was your original number that how many millions did you divide in?
For Marin City was 16,110,887. So that worked out to 53,702 per unit, and for the other 200 units, assuming it was 200 each, it was 5,741.
You took it for 2015.
Yeah. For 15.
So we did a per unit kind of analysis for 1 year.
So that means it's 10 times.
So as Mark mentioned, it's not a clear one-to-one for every unit. It depends on what work has been done and what work still needs to be done. But that's a ballpark way to try to get to your question, ma'am, around how much of this money is going towards each unit.
And this includes infrastructure though.
Yes, it actually, you're right. Royce, you were next.
Yeah. All you can refer to is either HUD or private developers to come in and do work. But the new trend across the nation is tearing down silos, while Lewis is, has sought you out, but how much seeking out is he doing to the Department of Transportation, as an example, or to other tearing down silos and coming across to really work to come up with the financing to renovate our homes? It's out there.
Yeah.
It's out there.
The answer is that as a housing agency, just like other agencies around the country, we are consistently looking for additional funding streams. We've had this conversation. If you know of an entity that will provide funding, we're ready to sit down and talk. Okay, the reality is that our federal government has said to us in no uncertain terms that this is all we're going to give you. From HUD. So to your point, say for example, if we wanted to do something with the Department of Transportation or the Department of Education, those entities will say, well, what are you doing transportation or education related? The notion of going, and I agree with you on silos, the notion of going from one federal agency to another and say, give us money to renovate a product that has nothing to do with your organization, it just doesn't exist. It does not exist. I've gone to Washington, D.C. over the last couple of years, twice, with the intent of having conversation around this historic preservation. I've been given information, from folks who are supporting this notion, and to date, I have not gotten one answer or $1 as it relates to here is financing that can support this effort. And guess what? And we're still looking and hoping that we can. Again, but the 60-40. So I'm not. See, there's a lot of things being thrown around.
I don't understand it.
I don't understand it either, to be quite frank with you. So this notion of 60-40, we get X amount of dollars to run the agency. The amount of money we get to run the agency today is a lot less than we used to get. Thus, we went from 60-something people down to 40-something people. I mean, it's the reality. If we continue to rely 100% on HUD funding, we hurt ourselves. Now, today we're just talking about, we wanted to put it in a perspective. $17 million is what we have in immediate, 16, whatever the number is, in immediate need. So now we have to ask ourselves, what are some of the ways that we can meet that? I can tell you one way we can't, and that's by having 100%, looking for 100% from HUD. It just won't happen. So I think as we go forward, we need to ask ourselves, what are some of the other funding streams that can help us meet this need? And that's all we wanted to talk about.
And one of the things that we've seen, one of the things that we've seen in our research is what we call mixed financing to support any type of new work across housing authorities. And mixed financing is doing what you're talking about, finding additional sources, whether it be public transit, when you look at some of that transit housing, hub housing that's going on. There are ways in which you can bring together pots of money from other folks that are both public and private. So the best case scenario is a public-private partnership that includes monies from public entities like city governments, state governments, and other pots that are federal pots, along with private money. And that might be a developer like Bridge Housing, which is nonprofit but private. So that is a very good point, Royce, and that is something that we're looking at. And
let me just add to something Ricardo said. That $10 million, there is no $10 million out there. To get $10 million to have resident programs and things of that nature, that money doesn't exist. If you know where it is, if you just hear me out. I want us to be clear as we talk about things like land trust and resident training and community training. I'm open to having conversations with anyone at any time about where those dollars are. I just think we owe it to the group to just be clear. The land trust. This is federal land. We can't, the federal government owns this land. Who's the trust? Who are we going to give it to? And then the notion of taking land and holding on to it for the use of affordable housing. Well, we already know we have an affordable housing need right now.
Where?
Right?
Not affordable.
Okay, well
affordable is not affordable
that's
if you're low income if you're very low income and extremely low income.
But my point, ladies and gentlemen, is that the money we get versus the money we need there's a huge gap.
There's a gap.
It's as simple as that. Now, how we address the gap is what we want to do.
I get that, but going forward, with that money that we don't have, that we're trying to get, how much money, if we were to get that, is this still going to be the 60-40 scenario? I want to know, how is that, like, so say for instance, in that proposal, within that budget, in those percentages, is it still moving forward where your facility will get 40% of the budget for faculty, and then the community will get, or maintenance will get 60%? Is that still in the proposals going forward? Seeing the results of it already.
Yeah, where are you getting this 60-40 from?
60-40 is not what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay, it's not what you're saying. 60, the way that, I don't know how the Housing Authority is doing it now, but their past practice was 60% of their HUD money, the subsidy, they would give 60% for Marina City, 40% for their elderly disabled.
Which is 10% each, right?
And the same for the capital money, 60% and 40%. That's that. Well, I know how it was. I mean, y'all may have changed it,
And what is
but
it now?
I don't know what it is now because the money that we were supposed to be getting ended up it's going somewhere else for windows on another property, which could be going right to our property.
So going forward, how much of that money in the budget is going straight to this community when we're going to those, when we're going to Washington?
Don't
ask
him. He got all the answers.
He's got all the money too.
And then Kim's next, and then I'm next.
Actually, I got Homer, and then Kim, and then
okay.
Yes. Awesome.
Can I say something before we move forward, just quickly?
Oh, then Homer, then her, then
No, we're in the right order. Okay. I just want to bring this back up because I've done this work for many years in different places, and when you get an offer like this is federal money that's being spent on your behalf, and it's actually your money. So when Mr. Jordan says, sit down with me and let's look at the budget, I just want to encourage you to take him up on that. So right now we're talking 3 or 4 different conversations about different pots of money, different understandings, but if we all sit down one time and look at one piece of paper, we all get really clear on the dollars. And I think that's a great opportunity to inform this group.
And can I ask a question? How many people in the room would be interested in a budget meeting? Whether you're working group or resident?
Okay.
Don't we have that with resident council and with RAD, Ms. Royce, that they can
But I see
participate
some
with
work
us with what we're doing
as well.
on a regular basis?
Yes.
I think that's a resident council meeting.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to defer to the resident first.
Thank you. Me?
Yeah.
Okay. First I'm going to start off with RDJ.
That's us, yes.
Right. What is your mission statement?
I couldn't tell you the mission statement.
Does anybody that works for RDJ or represents RDJ, can you tell me what the mission statement is, please? Can somebody look it up online? I'd like everybody, I challenge you. Look it up online and see what their mission statement is.
Here it is.
They serve their client.
Yes.
Who is their client?
Greenhouse.
Okay. So they are a conflict resolution team. They have been put in place to rub our back while we get what? Right. So I'm here to say this. I put a hammock in my front yard and I'm not taking it down. I feel like I am a long-term, roots deep in this community. I'm not going anywhere. And we are prepared to hire an attorney to represent us in a class action lawsuit for racial discrimination, for trying to get us all out of this community. I'm ready, and I have somebody that's so ready. She is chomping at the bit to get involved in this, and I was afraid to do it. Why fear anything but God?
Amen.
And I'm here to say it's not going to work. So now let me start quoting people that said don't quote me. Derek Smith said that shit's coming down. Quote.
And he builded the...
Lewis Jordan said there is nothing that you guys can do to stop this. Quote. In the name of Jesus. I sit on right beside you. Now try to convict me for telling the truth. I'm Karen Ashby's daughter.
You're lying.
You better ask somebody.
You're lying.
In the name of Jesus. In the name of Jesus. May God have mercy on your soul. May God, and this guy right here, he laughed at me and mocked me when I said, well, Venus place.
watch you don't, mommy.
So
stop it.
This is, if we want this.
He did tell me that. I said, so all these meetings are for in vain? What are these meetings for? Well, there's nothing you guys can do to stop us. You don't know what to say. Look at how he's pacing. I'm not lying on him. I'm not lying. Everybody in this community knows me. Am I a liar?
Finish your comments. Finish your
I'm
comments.
hurt. I'm hurt. I'm hurt because I don't like being lied to.
Okay.
Finish it. And I told him, and I told the lady that passed out the flyer, I said, why don't you just tell us the truth? Help us get our credit ready. Help us get ready for this move. If you guys are going to get rid of us, help us get ready for that. Don't just put us out.
Right.
Help us get jobs. Help us get our credit right. Help us find other places. Don't just evict us. This is what I said. Just tell the truth. Don't lie to us. You are conflict resolution specialist. That's why you standing here tomorrow. Calm down. That's what you're paid to do. And that is your mission statement. That is your mission statement. To serve your client. Your client is the housing authority. Whether Roy sits on this panel and decides, that woman disrespected my mother right there. And because I want my unit, I didn't check you. But you disrespected my mother. And you out of line. I would never disrespect anybody's mother. And you know, you've heard about me. Don't play with my mother and don't ever disrespect her again. Secondly,
Who did?
you did.
No, I didn't.
No, not you, Miss Mary, the lady sitting next to you.
Anyway,
Can I try to get us
I
want you to listen to me.
conflict resolution specialist. You are doing your job.
So I'm asking you because I want you to be heard. And
He called me a liar in public.
Okay, and
That is
I'm not arguing
defamation
that
of
point.
character.
But what
That
I
is
do want to do,
defamation of character.
this is the place for you to be heard.
I project. I'm not yelling.
No, I want you to be heard, but I'm just asking.
I'm not yelling.
I'm asking you to stay
I'm
focused on the
intimidating?
issues. That's what I'm asking.
Okay.
I want
Stay
you to
focused.
on the
When you
issues.
get called a liar in
Yes.
front of people, look at him. He's dancing.
Unprofessional.
He's upset.
Okay, that's fine. Let him do what he's doing. Make sure that you get your point. What he's doing is
My
irrelevant
point
to your
is,
point.
if you guys are here to displace us, to uproot us, at least be honest about it.
So
Don't
can I
lie.
respond? Can I respond to it? Do you want me to respond?
That's
That's a question.
honest response.
That's a
When you
question.
start lying, I'm gonna stop you. Go ahead.
You can stop me at any
Go
point
ahead.
you feel you know I'm lying.
Go ahead.
I wouldn't be here, and none of us at RDJ would be here if we came here to displace people. We are speaking the information that we got. And
From where?
From
Your
From
client.
Housing Authority.
Go
Yes.
ahead. Keep going, brother. Thank you.
So we can only take the information we get. We are not going to, I am not playing any side games. We do not have any vision. We're kicking people out. As far as we know, there is no plan that's developed that's on any table.
I was told 6 years last time I was here. Does anybody remember that? I said, how many years does my son graduate from high school living here? I said, is it how many years? They said 6 years. I said, oh, so middle school. So when is the 100-year lease up? I mean, I'm ignorant to this. But when is the 100-year lease up? Oh! Oh! So let me make it clear. HUD.
So let me do this. I'm going to give you 2 more minutes, and I want to move on so we can have other people speak. You got 2 more minutes to make the comments you need. I want to make sure that people be heard. This is not just one person's meeting.
I want the truth. I want the truth. I don't want to look up one day. First of all, I'm going to have a 3-day notice. Everybody watch this, and I will sue housing when I get that 3-day notice who's speaking the truth in a public forum. Number 2.
Yes.
I would like to know what the plan is, period.com. What year are you guys talking about tearing down these units? What year are you talking about displacing us? I have plants in the yard. My mother won't move from her unit because my little brother, God rest his soul, planted those plants and she don't want to leave that unit. So these are our homes. This is where I grew up. This is where I played double dutch. Yes, this is where I lost my eye. This is also where I had my children. So this is what I want to know. When are you guys planning on putting us out and why? Take the money, rebuild the units. Take the money, make the units suitable. The 87 earthquake, was it 87? 89. 89. The 89 earthquake, we shook, but we didn't crumble. We didn't fall.
The goal of RDJ in this community engagement piece, and if it doesn't land, I understand. And those who don't believe it, I can't make you believe it.
But I can say very clearly, our goal is to make sure that a plan is written that reflects the wants and needs of the residents so that it's submitted to housing authority.
I was also told it was 3 units stacked. A bottom floor, another floor, and a third. I have a townhouse, my condo, thank you, and I take care of it. I have beautified it. Thank you. Yes, I do. When you move into a unit and you do any restoration, you are making the property more valuable. So I have done that in my unit. I have not taken my unit down. I brought my unit up.
So I hear you, but I said something to you and you didn't respond, so I don't know if you heard me. So I do, the 2 minutes we've heard. I want to move around the room to this side to see if there's anyone else who has any questions or comments. You're right, you're absolutely right. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Jordan.
And then
when you went to D.C., my daughter, who lives in Virginia, heard on the radio that they learned in a meeting that Marin City was going to be torn down. Now this was when you went to D.C. You told them in D.C. that you were tearing down Marin City and refurbishing it like you did Cabrini Green. Now you need to go back to Cabrini Green.
Please don't coach my mother. She's speaking. Thank you.
You were responsible for Cabrini Green getting torn down. That's why the Board of Supervisors brought you out here, to get us out of our apartments, because you think we're as stupid as the people in Cabrini Green. And I know what kind of people are in Cabrini Green.
Word.
We're in
They're
Cabrini Green.
displaced.
So,
thank you, Ms. Ashby.
Ms. Ashby, there was no conversation with anyone by me or anyone on my staff in DC that was on a radio, that was period. Now, I'm not questioning what your daughter heard, but I can tell you what I said and didn't say. And to that end, let me say this. My integrity was questioned, and I in return questioned yours. And I could have handled that differently.
You can handle it any way you want, but you stood in the 100 lot with me, and I said, what is all the meetings about? What are they about? You said, there's nothing you guys can do. You said that. And I hope that God hears every word you say, because you will pay for it.
You're questioning my integrity.
Did I come to you and tell you what Derek Smith said also?
Yes, you did.
And what did you say?
What did I say? I'll tell everybody what I said. I said, Derek Smith has nothing to do with this process.
Is Derek Smith your friend?
You're my friend.
No, I'm not.
Okay,
so
Derek Smith has nothing to do with this process.
He said that shit's coming down.
I wasn't there. I can't. Anyway, my way of responding to you wasn't proper. I still stand and say I did not say.
You look at me in my good eye and telling me I lied?
Okay, so I answered the question.
No, excuse me. Everybody be on alert. I am not a dishonest person. If you grew up with me or know me from this community, you know that I don't lie.
Thank you for
I am not a liar.
Thank you. And can we get back to there are some other people who would like to say something and who have some comments to make. So can we start with
Let it go. You want to let it go?
Gail, you would like to make your comment, please do.
No, what she's talking about, Aim, that Derek said, because I was at a meeting too, and I heard the same thing, that you need to pack your bags too, and you might as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yep.
So I don't think that it's just by misquote that you people just hear this kind of stuff. I think she's questioning where are the real truth under all this is really coming from. She might be a little louder, but she has a question that really needs to be answered. You know, seriously. And the truth, you know, people, they don't always, they need to hear the truth on this. This is their life. You know.
Well, where's Derek at? So he can just stand up here and tell the truth.
Just tell the truth.
Well, like he said, Derek don't have that to
tell the truth.
Can we do this?
Help us. His building.
And I'm going to ask a question because it is now context, please. 7:45? I'm not, you're gonna get your chance. I just need us to be mindful of the fact that it's 7:45. We have gotten through the presentation. I need to know, other than Royce, can we get a check on how many other folks would like to make a statement, ask a question, working group members and residents? If you still have something to say, please raise your hand so we can get to you in the next 15 minutes. Okay? So I'm going to start with Royce, Denny. Was that you, Mary? Okay, Royce, Denny, Mary. And then we'll go straight this way, back a row, okay? Does that seem fair? All right. So, and can you please be mindful of time? I know you have a lot to say, but we want to make sure that everyone has a chance to speak, okay? So go ahead, Royce.
Okay, I just want to say, and I'm going to say this in a calm, peaceful way, that we're not moving.
Amen.
And it's not going to be like how in other places. Thank God for the other places, because that gave us an education on what could happen coming our way. Our homes are, yes, they are in need of deferred maintenance that deliberately the housing authority, not just with Louis Jordan, but Dan Ackerman as he tried to run the authority into the ground, but deliberately taking money away from our complex. Goes all the way back to Barbara Collins. Actually, truth be told, Janet Miller Schultz is the only one executive director that really cared about the people, and made sure that we were living the way that we should deserve to live. Now, we're not going anywhere. So, and I'm trusting, I'm trusting God in Jesus' name. And I know I've been spent too much prayer and listening, and the Lord has said, you're not going, that's not, their plan is not my plan. And so he said, be still and see the salvation of the Lord. And so we're not going anywhere. We have nowhere to go, because if you told the whole truth about the whole thing, you're going to have to relocate. Well, Marin County only has less than 1% rental, and if you're black, you sure ain't gonna get in that be in that 1%. That's in terms of in this county. Then you get you shake your head. No, I know what time it is. Then you go to where we going? Antioch or somewhere on the east side of the Mississippi River? No. We as residents, there may be some that say, "Oh, I want to go." Because there's 3,000 people on the waiting list. That's why you're dogging people, worse than dogs, have no heart for the residents that live here, trying to force people out of here. But we're not going. We are not going, Louis Jordan. We're not going. You will leave here before we leave here. No, but the bottom line is we're not going anywhere. So the best thing to do is work with the people instead of, that's just like us as a resident council. What did they do? Had to go to federal court in order for our rights. Now what do? Oh, you go meet in the CDC office when the CDC staff won't meet there at night. So we have no space to meet, but you think you're in desperation, we ain't gonna give you nothing. You gotta pay rent like everybody else against the HUD regulation. But that's okay, because what God has for you, no man can take against you. And so I'm believing God on you in the mighty name of Jesus. We're not going to go anywhere. And the right thing is going to be done. It's going to be done for the people here. Should everybody be here that's not doing the right thing? Of course not. But there are people here who have made this their home, not just passing through. Home. Home. You say, oh, you want to take ownership in that land? You don't belong. That don't belong to you. Oh, but if you go look at just walk past 345, oh yes, it does
Royce?
belong to me.
Royce?
And not only me, those of us who care. No, those of us who care. I mean, you got people that want to tear down their units, this, that, and the other, but you got a great majority of residents that home, H-O-M-E. This is our home. Now, if you had any kind of compassion for our home, and that's not talking about tearing something down and putting you in something else. We're talking about our home.
Royce.
Our home.
I'm sorry, Royce, we agreed that. Royce, we agreed that people would have a chance. Royce, excuse me.
Black homes
Excuse me, we agreed that there were other residents who would like to have a chance to speak. Can we allow them that opportunity? We decided that we would go around the room so that we can wrap up. We have Denny, yes? Homer, you did have a question or a comment?
Yeah, wait.
So let's start with Denny. Again, we're going to go around the room
It is
so that everyone who would like to speak can have a chance before we wrap up. Denny.
You're torn. Oh,
let Denny speak.
So
I just on your face.
Royce, can we let Denny speak?
Sorry, I just want to share that, first of all, I think, as I'm assuming everyone else in the community work group, I hope, feels that we take this responsibility very seriously, and the guiding principles that we started out with in the process were to protect existing Golden Gate households, to restore Golden Gate Village economic sustainability, to assure resident participation throughout the planning and revitalization process, to preserve historic Marinship heritage, to promote high-quality open space, and to collaborate with the Marin County community to expand economic development, job training, education opportunities for Golden Gate Village residents. So I just want to bring up that these are the guiding principles for this work group. And I myself take them very seriously. I've come to every single meeting and I am listening very deeply to what everyone has to say. And so that's my first statement. And the second statement is because of the amount of money that we're talking about, I appreciate the needs assessment that EMG did, and I appreciate the amount of work that went into it. I also think that looking at that more closely, and I think that looking at the budget, having a budget review session, as Lewis offered up, is also very important, because I think as residents and members of the community work group, we have a responsibility to know what the numbers are, where they're coming from, and how they break out, because the only way that we're going to get to the recommendations that are the best possible recommendations for the community is to take this work seriously and to actually look at the dollars and cents and the facts that are in front of us in terms of what is the best possible thing to do. I mean, and I think for me, this is the process we're going through right now. There are no foregone conclusions. I haven't made any. I am doing my best to take in all the information that's being offered up, and I'm assuming that everybody else is doing the same thing, to make the best decision as a group that we can all possibly make. So that's my statement.
Thank you, Jenny. Homer, do you want to defer? Do you have something to say?
The residents.
Well, first we have.
Well, I'm a resident.
I guess.
I'd
Go
like
ahead,
to say
Mary.
something.
Yes, go ahead.
All I just want to say is very quickly, I can only speak for myself, but I do live in Marin City, and I've been here for many years, and I don't have a dime. So when I look at this, and I don't know about everybody else here, but I'm assuming that all of us are kind of having a struggle. So when you start talking about thousands and millions of dollars, it's nothing that any of us can even relate to, because we're trying to get our little rent money to pay our rent to stay up here on this hill. So this, I understand we have to do all this, but what about our families? And if we do get revitalized, do we get to come back into our same units? Do we get to come back to our same schools? Do we get to be by our same neighbors? Just wondering.
And I think that's a part of the process where the next steps in the process we need to look at. What are those options? What are the things that we can do in order to ensure that resident need, that resident concern is met while we still maintain a safe and livable infrastructure for people? And so I think it's a hard question. It's never easy. It's always intense, because that's just the nature of this work. But I think if we can agree that there's no real ill will on either side of the table, everyone in any negotiation has a position. And it's our job to help you understand one another's position so that you can come to some kind of consensus around what are the next steps and where does this community go. Sure, you could stay where you are today. You could just continue to maintain these units, and that might be what this working group decides. Nobody's saying that that's not what it decides. Maybe the working group decides it wants to go with a historical preservation model. That remains to be seen. But let's let this play out. Let's give it an opportunity. And then I had a next, Mary. Who is the
Okay, so I heard you say something about there not being enough money. And you said from your research or from looking at other, that they usually reach out or get extra funding from public-private entities such as bridge housing. What other examples do you have?
There's actually a slide that has some of that examples. You have a slide that has some examples, right? Can we go forward, 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 forward? Here. No, back one. The last one. Okay, so contracting out a significant portion of property management in Oakland, Los Angeles, Santa Clara County, Monterey County, and Seattle. I'm looking for the one where we talk about. I thought you had a slide that talked about bridge and some other.
I don't.
Okay. What I can do for you, this is what I can do for you. The working group got a handout last month that's called Ideas and Assets that looks at a variety of different economic strategies that are used to help fund some of these things, and that does give some information. If folks are interested in what does multi-use funding look like, because that's the answer to your question. I can't give it to you off the top of my head, and I would not want to give it to you off the top of my head, because that would not really answer your question.
So multi-use funding.
Multi-use funding. If you go to the HUD website, they have an entire section on multi-use funding.
Okay,
yes.
One more thing.
Oh, wait.
One more thing, second part. How do we go about any one of us getting the real report like Roy said? This is not the real report.
This report will be available as of tomorrow morning via Ilya Filmus at the Housing Authority. This is Ilya. Raise your hand.
Over there in San Rafael?
No. Yes. Over there in San Rafael. From their office. His email address is
Filmus. IFILMUS at marincity.org.
Marin IFIL.
Housing.org.
I
first. There you go.
FIL.
FIL.
MUS at marinhousing.org. That is his email address. For any person in this room, outside of this room, if you want that report in your hand so you can go through it page by page, that information is available to you. Contact Ilya. He will make sure that you get a copy. I gotta go around this way.
Is it this report or
it is the full? This is a condensed version. Okay, the report is like, well, how many pages? It's huge.
I'm sorry.
80. It's about 80 pages.
So the original report is.
This is a summary.
This is a summary. Correct. Yes.
Okay. I just want to speak from a resident's perspective. I mean, I haven't heard that it's going to be torn down, but since we don't own the land, we feel as if we don't have control over it. You know, and we're here to facilitate the conversation of the plan with RDJ and the residents. But we feel that we have to keep in mind that we are low income. And we know from tonight that the units need a lot of work. So that scares us as well. We're like, okay, we don't have control. We might be losing our house. We might be displaced. That's where this fear is coming from the numbers, the lack of control we don't own the land, and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily that we're trying to attack you or anyone else in housing. It's just we are afraid. And it's because of what we're seeing when we're here. Not afraid like that, but there's a general fear that I've heard from my neighbors, my family members who live here, you know.
And young lady, I hear you. And all I ask is that people come and listen. No one has ever heard me nor my staff talk about moving people out, talking about in fact, if I've said anything, I've said whatever we look to try and do, we're sensitive to the 2% vacancy rate in Marin County. 1%. We're sensitive to the fact that a bunch of folks getting up, moving anywhere is not feasible in this community. So I just ask you to just be open. Just be open. Not one time have we ever talked about relocating, moving people out. Those are things that may have happened in other communities. And someone said it earlier, and I agree 100%. This is not Chicago. This is not San Francisco. This is not New York. Every one of these processes have to come from a place where the people come together and say, what's in the best interest for our community? Folks, that's all we're asking for. No one has said anything. And what concerns me, what disturbs me, what insults me, is when people will stand and say, they're going to move us out, they're going to put us out. None of that conversation is happening. So again, to your point, young lady, I agree 100%. It's a very emotionally charged conversation, particularly when you look at things that have gone on other places. Louis Jordan cannot, will not, doesn't want to make a singular decision. This community will make decisions as we go forward. Thank you.
So, right. And does anyone in this room have a comment?
Well, we grew up here. You know, my mother been here for 57 years. You know, she can't move. There's a lot of us around here been here too long.
Can we listen? Can we hear what she has to say?
And I was born here, and I'm not going nowhere. I'm going to stay exactly where I'm at. So everybody should be able to stand up for us.
That's it.
We grew up here.
That's right. That's right.
This is ours.
You're the first person.
We all got to stand up.
That's right. That's right, Denise.
I don't prefer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that is it.
Amen.
Amen. And we need to take it to the Board of Supervisors. Louis is just an employee. We need to take this to the Board of Supervisors. That's what we need to take it to.
I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah. He's just doing his job.
We made an agreement. We as a group made an agreement.
You're just doing your job.
Excuse
we need to take it up to your boss and let your boss know what time it is.
Excuse me.
And let him bring it on.
You're outside.
Where are you coming? I'm trying to
Yeah, but so that's where we need to go.
Actually speak.
Well,
I didn't hear it.
yelling.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I want to ask Jordan a question.
Can we get to these? We have these folks back here.
Oh, I didn't see nobody with their hand.
So, yes.
There's about 3 people.
Okay,
Don't be shy, raise your hand.
Oh,
Remember, it's now 8 o'clock. If we could try and keep it brief. Thank you.
I'll try to be quick. I will be quick. I talked about land ownership, the same as the lady alluded to over here. And I talked about community as a whole as a support system. But I want to talk about money. And Louis, you know, we may have had in and out conversations about money, dollars. There's a foundation down the road, the Endowment Foundation. They invested $1 billion into 14 communities for a 10-year plan for transformation. We need to be in their face. We need to be one of those.
That's right.
There's the Union Bank down the road, who this community has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into that bank. And they have access to CRA dollars, Community Reinvestment Act dollars, that this might interest your lawyer. We have been segregated out of those dollars.
Oh,
we
really?
have discriminated against from day one. Yeah, we couldn't get that money for the shopping
What's the
center.
name of the place to take your money?
Well, I'll fill you in as much as that. The foundation down the road is specialist in creating silos, the way they operate. I'm going to ask them for $2.5 million to put into our fiscal agent we should have in this community to start the process of accumulating wealth from within and using it for the purposes that we're talking about tonight. Let's see, did I leave out anything? Oh yeah, Thursday, Gus Newport, who is a renowned community land trust specialist in Boston, Mexico, Raleigh, North Carolina, New Orleans. We will be having a meeting Thursday morning from 11 to 1. And all your questions about land ownership, private, public, partnerships, all these good things.
Where's the meeting? Where's the meeting?
The senior center. And I will give you lunch.
What time?
11 to 1.
Thank you.
And we will feed you.
We're putting the information right here. Anyone else in this back row have a comment? Question? I had a woman here. Yes, ma'am, you had a comment?
It wasn't about, it's only about, I was born and raised here. I have family still live here. This is our home. I no longer live here now, but this is my home, okay? And I heard this when I was coming up here. The same thing. They want to tear everything down and combine it with Sausalito or whatever, okay? As I was growing up as a kid, I heard my mom and her friends talking about it. You guys are still trying to do the same thing. Throw us out. This is our home.
I have Aura. Homer, do you have, Homer has something. So I have Aura, I have Homer.
And you have Ruby.
And Ruby.
And we will close with Ruby.
And we will close with Ruby.
I just want to say that I went to the Housing California conference and also the tours in the East Bay yesterday. So to your point, if anybody is interested on any of the material that I brought, you know, about these tours and about what's going on in California, in the state of California, there are other options and other ways of dealing with things, and including, you know, I want to say again that Royce has brought it up, but we do have a very good plan in our midst right now that we hope to be able to hear more about. But again, just anybody who's interested, see me after the meeting and I can give you some information.
And that tour that she went on was part of Affordable Housing Week, which was that was put on by MOEVHO, the East Bay Organization. Housing Organization.
That was the second one. I went to the Housing California Conference in Sacramento, which was a full 2 days of meeting with people all over California and hearing what they're doing. Really, a lot of really exciting things. Similar to what we're talking about, where the residents actually have plans and the housing authorities are working with the residents' plans.
Thank you for that, Aura.
Yeah.
Homer.
2 points. I'd like to comment on something Ms. Roy said. 2 things that I've been here almost 60 plus some years. And I heard a resident say to compare Marin City's reputation with Hunters Point. That's a no, that's a way out of line. Marin City has a Marin County reputation, but there's nowhere near close to what went on in Hunters Point. Point number two, Ponderosa and Oak Nose were built around the same time. I remember Ms. Roy said housing outlived their thing. Probably used to
Housing Authority.
Housing Authority. So what happened over here was that Ponderosa became a co-op. Oak Nose
was already
co-op. So what happened was Oak Nose had a mortgage burning, and those people owned their housing. Over here in Ponderosa, with the development, the resident board decided they want to take out a $6 million loan. Yeah, when these people were this close to owning their units, they were making that mortgage. That's right. So what happened was the residents decided, the resident board, which my daughter still has a unit over there because I moved out and we transferred out assets to her after my wife died. There's no way in her lifetime will she see that own that building, simply because they decided that the preventive maintenance, they needed $6 million to do siding and the refurbish. So you have to kind of be careful what you ask for, because what happens is you look at a situation where you can say we get a private developer comes in there, and what happened is in Oak Nose right now with that $6 million loan that they got, they have a HUD subsidy over there, which exists, but from the way it's designed, those people would never own those units.
Okay, out of line. And Ruby's going to close us out for the evening.
Okay, Mr. Jordan, I just wanted, you said that since the places need a lot of work done, they lasted 55 years. When I lived in public housing, I know the chrome. I had a friend of mine, white friend, come from Nevada, and he was in the bathroom talking about, "Ooh, this chrome, this chrome." That chrome never corroded because the government uses the best. Now I know it's been a cheapening of America, so things are cheaper now and everything.
And since you said we need outside people to help with the refurbishment, because we don't have enough money with Marin Housing through HUD. Isn't that what you said for
I
units?
said that the current funding
Right,
would
so
not
that-
allow us to make the housing the way it should be. Yes, ma'am.
And that there was nobody just willing to give us a loan. But are there people that you're courting, or people that a list of people that will, you know, loan the money to public housing development that needs to borrow? Is there a group, like Ricardo said, there's some group that we're alienated from, the 14?
Well, no, we just don't spend the time capacity development. We do not, I don't know, we hate
Well, isn't that what Marin Housing is supposed to do for us?
So Ms. Ruby, to answer your question, the answer is no. We aren't in conversation with anyone about money, about financing, about planning. We're not in conversation with anyone. I think it was mentioned at our subsequent meetings, we're going to look at different models. We're going to look at, so in order to close that gap, we're going to look at different housing models, different finance models, and we'll do it for the first time in front of the whole group where everyone has participation. So your short answer is no, ma'am, we have not had those conversations ever.
And so with the next group, if not enough people come and the decision is just mainly on the, what did you call this, the work group? What do you call this group?
The working group, so to answer that question is no. The working group is not a final decision body. The working group will make a recommendation. Simply, they'll say, based on what we've seen, here's, maybe you should consider A, B, or C. No more, no less.
And look how many are residents.
The working group doesn't determine whether we move forward. The intent of this process was to bring people from the community together to talk about these options. That's all.
Okay, and so Marin Housing it manages this property, right?
Yes.
But as the managers, and you own the property, right? And
No,
manage it.
the federal government owns it.
But you manage the property.
Yes, ma'am.
But it's not your job to solicit outside funding to help us refurbish.
Once a plan comes, at some point, a plan will be offered up to the board to say, based on all that we know, this is what we like to see happen. At that point, we move forward. But right now, none of those things are happening.
And the board, you mean the board of supervisors?
The board of supervisors plus 2 residents, which make up the housing commission.
Okay. So,
does that answer it?
Hold up, because we are now at 8:13.
I just want to say to the residents of Golden Gate Village, we need to take this to the Board of Supervisors. They are the ones, not Louis Jordan. He's doing what Dan Ackerman did, Barbara Collins did. Chris Guick has integrity. She didn't do it. We need to go up to the Board of Supervisors like we did, and it's been 2005 when we did go up there in number, and to let them know we're not going anywhere.
Can I ask you a question? Excuse me, when is your next resident council meeting? And listen, there is a resident council that meets regularly, that is here and in place to address resident issues. Royce is the president of
No, I'm a vice president.
She's a vice president of that council.
Secretary. And we
when
got
is your next meeting?
I was going to ask, can you note it on the notes?
Yeah, that's what we're going to do. When is your next meeting?
Tuesday. Next week.
You don't know the date?
26.
26. The 26th, what time?
6 o'clock.
Where?
79 Cole, number 4.
6 p.m., 79 Cole. If you are a resident of Golden Gate Village and have resident concerns about this process or anything that takes place in Golden Gate Village, please make sure to attend a resident council meeting.
That's right.
We add on our agenda budget.
At 6 o'clock.
6 p.m. About how long do you go?
We'll add it to our agenda.
7:30 to 8, but it depends.
Yeah, like the,
Yes. If the resident council requests that we talk budget, that we talk capital, Royce has invited staff and I to these meetings before. We've come, we've talked security, we've talked budget. We welcome the opportunity to get in front of folks and talk.
And we will also look at the scheduling of a budget meeting for this body so that the working group members have a better understanding of what the Housing Authority budget looks like, and that anyone who wants to come to that meeting will be we will be open to the public so that you guys can attend as well. We want to see resident participation. It is time for us to close out now.
So what I want to do is I'm listening to everything that's being said. Some of it is kind of prospective, and this is what we want. Some of it's more reactive. This is what we don't. And not everyone in the room believes that we are here to write a plan, but that's what I'm here to do. And so I've been capturing some potential plan components based on the conversation. So one component that I've heard loud and clearly, and we actually started the meeting with, is no displacement. As well as some people have said, not even temporary relocation. Don't even move me out, do it while I'm in my living room. Some people have said, and this didn't come out of this meeting, but I captured it from a previous meeting, that if there's going to be additional market rate housing on top of the 300 HUD housing, that some of those, I don't know where, we don't know. But if there's going to be more, what are you confused about?
Why are you saying people are saying they don't want to be displaced when he said they're not going to be? He said he wasn't saying that they're not. That's
that's what he's saying.
But people are still saying, I'm going to sue, I'm not leaving, so I'm capturing what the residents are saying.
I'm only suing if I get a 3-day notice.
I'm capturing what you're saying. I'm just capturing what you're saying. Obviously, what you're saying is not resonating.
Hey, can we
these are potential plan components. If there is new market rate housing, you can make a demand in the plan that a percentage of them be low.
The market rate housing out of those 300 units, are you serious?
Market rate on top of the 300, which was said by the group.
Oh,
you said.
Yeah, that's what we. No, I didn't say no market rate housing.
You said that there were.
That's what she said.
Some people are concerned that in addition to the remodeling, that there will be market rate housing built in addition to the 300.
Where?
I don't know if that's even going to happen, but I'm saying.
That's what somebody heard, so you put it up there.
I'm trying to capture your concern. We've been talking a lot about hearsay today.
Okay.
So I'm trying to capture the hearsay. That's what we're talking about. There has been a question about a co-op model.
Hello, can we please listen?
This is where the rubber meets the road, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh yeah.
A possibility is a co-op model. That's something else that was brought up. Something else was brought up multiple times, historic preservation, and another one around economic development was the job training. So please take these as points to put in the plan, not points to argue that we aren't here to make a plan.
Thank you. So, our next meeting is June, I want to say 16th. Our next meeting is the 15th. And as residents, if you want to make sure that you get noticed on the next meeting, we make phone calls to every resident that attends these meetings.
What about the meetings that are happening at Golden Gate Village? Were we going to be able to find out about those? The meetings that are happening, the little group meetings?
Living room meetings. Living room meetings take place. Excuse me. The next working group meeting is June 22nd, same time, same location. Okay? Living room meetings occur twice a month. They are hosted by residents. It is RDJ's opportunity to find out about what concerns residents have across the board. It allows us to take a deeper look at what resident need it is in terms of services. What are your concerns? What are you saying? Anything that we hear that is a housing authority issue, we turn over to housing authority. When we hear that my tub is cracked, my toilet's been clogged for 3 weeks and I need somebody to come fix it, we turn that over to the housing authority. The other things that we talk about, one of the meetings we talked about education, and what does education look like, and what are some of parents' frustrations. At another meeting we talked about job training, because people were concerned about what kind of job opportunities are available for their children, both now and into the future. So those meetings are our opportunity to get a better fix on what residents are saying. They are open to the public. Any resident can host one, and at least 2 working group members have actually hosted meetings. Anyone is able to do that. We do 2 per month. If you're interested in hosting one, let us know. If you would like to attend one, we already know you are.
When?
We had you scheduled for May.
This is May.
I know, we were waiting for you to get back to us with your dates.
ASAP.
That's fine. And anyone who would like to attend, working group members or others, all you have to do is ask us, and we are happy to let you know when those meetings occur. Again, we attempt to do 2 per month. The other activity that we have been doing are called pop-ups, where we, after we hear what people's concerns are about services, we come out on a Saturday morning or afternoon to give out information to residents about the services that they are interested in. During spring break, we bought some video truck out here for kids to play and to give them information about youth service opportunities. We also did one around jobs and job training. When we were having that conversation, we had a pop-up around jobs and jobs training where we distributed information from job training organizations in the area. Anything that you have concerns about that you would like to know about, that is my email address, lgray@rdjent.biz. You can reach out to me anytime. I am fairly responsive. Fairly. Any other final questions? I want to thank you all for your passion, for your commitment, and for just showing up and voicing your opinions and your concerns, because we need to hear them. Without your voice and without your opinions, we're kind of working in a vacuum. So again, thank you very much for coming tonight, and we'll see you on June 22nd.